At the beginning of the movie, we see Max, who grew up in a foster home and is now an adult. A flashback reveals that, among all the kids there, he was closest to a boy named Luke. In the present, Max is shown breaking into a building and painting graffiti on someone else's property. Another flashback takes us to the moment when Luke was leaving for college for 4 years. Max is heartbroken, but Luke reassures him that he'll visit often and reminds him that their bond is thicker than blood. Back in the present, the police arrive and arrest Max. In another flashback, Max sees his foster parents crying as they deliver the devastating news that Luke has passed away. Luke had been struggling in college, and before ending his life, he left behind a note. The scene shifts to the present, where Max's foster father meets him at the police station and scolds him for his reckless behavior. From their conversation, it becomes clear that Max has been this way ever since Luke's death. His foster father tells him that he made a few calls, and fortunately, Max won't have to go to jail. Instead, he's been assigned community service, 4 months at Green Meadows Retirement Home, working as the new on-site superintendent. Max resists at first, but his foster father eventually convinces him to accept it. We then see Max arriving at the retirement home. As he stands outside, he notices an old man staring at him from a window.
Comment. Subscribe to Recapss Horror.
He then enters the building, where his cleaning duties are explained. Juno gives him a master key, though it doesn't unlock certain hallways or the basement. Les instructs him never to enter residents' apartments unless there's an emergency. Juno also warns him not to go to the 4th floor, as the patients there require special care. Later, Max is seen struggling with a housekeeping cart when a human dummy suddenly falls, startling him. He pulls out its eye and pushes it back, but the dummy falls forward again. He then goes to the 3rd floor and knocks on a door to collect the garbage. When no one answers, he steps inside to retrieve it. Suddenly, he hears the sound of a woman groaning. Concerned, he goes to check and is stunned to find a masked, elderly woman and man being intimate. As he turns to leave, the old woman suddenly stops, realizing that someone was there. Later, an old woman asks Max for a towel. Realizing he is new, she introduces herself as Norma and mentions that he reminds her of someone she once knew. Max introduces himself in return. That night, while Max is asleep, he hears faint whispers. Suddenly, he jolts awake, hearing someone screams his name. A moment later, a man's scream echoes from the floor above, startling him further. He notices his room door is ajar, so he quickly closes and locks it. The next morning, there's a frantic knock on his door. When Max opens it, Louis and Sadie tells him there's an emergency and takes him with them. As they enter a room, the residents surprise him with a warm welcome party. They introduce themselves, including Ellie, who doesn't speak English but greets him warmly. Max then notices a woman painting in the corner. She stares at him and sticks out her tongue mockingly. Just then, an elderly man approaches Max and introduces himself as Sabian, a doctor on staff. He tells him that the residents are good people who deserve comfort in their twilight years, and then compliments Max's eyes. That night, while Max is asleep, the masked old woman is seen sitting silently in his room. She slowly rises, breathing heavily as she moves toward him, then lies down beside him. Max opens his eyes, still in a deep sleep, and notices the door slightly ajar. When he turns, he is startled to see her lying next to him. She says, "Did you like what you saw yesterday?" Suddenly, the door slams shut. She stabs him with a knife, and a masked man appears, strangling him, until Max jolts awake, realizing it was a nightmare. From outside, Max hears music and steps out to find an elderly couple dancing. Suddenly, a scream echoes from the floor above, startling him. Norma appears, asks what he's doing there, and when he says he couldn't sleep, she admits the same and invites him for a conversation. In her room, Max notices something on the floor that looks familiar. Norma explains that it belonged to her friend Esther, who passed away at the home years ago. Esther used to sculpt small trinkets for people. Max then points to a torn painting on the wall. Norma shares that her son Jacob painted it for her on Mother's Day. It once showed a flock of birds with the sun rising above them, but after an argument one night, he ripped it apart. Jacob is gone now, and the memory still haunts her. She admits that unresolved feelings keep her awake at night. Max quietly tells her he's going through something similar. The next day, Max sees Louis giving acting lessons to the residents. After the session, as everyone leaves, Max compliments him for making the residents happy. Louis thanks him and says, "People spend their whole lives trying to prolong life, but in the end, boredom is what really sends them to the grave. Not disease, not illness, but boredom." Just then, Juno arrives and asks Max to report to the 3rd floor. While cleaning there, Max once again hears a man screaming from above. Curious, he decides to check the 4th floor. The elevator doesn't work, so he takes the stairs and picks the lock with a pin to open the door. Inside, he finds a room filled with elderly people in wheelchairs. Their condition is horrifying. Bodies frail, the air foul and eyes bleeding. One old man spots Max and points at him. Max moves closer to help, but the man suddenly screams, tries to stand, and collapses. He crawls toward Max, then lunges, trying to grab him. At that moment, Juno and Les rush in, restrain the old man, and urgently insist that Max leave immediately. The scene cuts to Sabian, speaking with Max. He tells him that Les is upset about his visit to the 4th floor. Max defends himself, saying he heard a scream. Sabian reminds Max why he is here, that this is his chance to finally let go of the past, and urges him to follow the rules. Max apologizes. Later, Max sees the residents enjoying a pool party when Norma approaches. He asks why she isn't joining, and she replies that she's not in the mood. She then mentions she heard he went to the 4th floor. Max insists there's something wrong with the people there. Norma answers, "A heart knows a heart." She explains that when she used to tuck her son into bed, she would say this to him. She warns Max that there's nothing he or anyone can do for those on the 4th floor. That night, Max once again sneaks to the 4th floor. He spots the old man standing with his back in a corner. Approaching carefully, Max assures him he means no harm. Suddenly, the man turns, throws a noose around Max's neck, and strangles him as the others laugh, pulling out their own intestines. Max jolts awake. It was only a nightmare. The next morning, Max confides to Louis that he hasn't been able to sleep. Louis suggests it might be due to the oxygen levels adjusted for the elderly residents. At that moment, Max notices Norma arguing heatedly with Sabian and Les. Later, Max knocks on Norma's door. She opens, dressed for the home's murder mystery night. When Max mentions seeing her argue earlier, she dismisses it. He then opens up about his past. His brother Luke died when he was 11, but his parents wouldn't let him attend the funeral, thinking he was too young. He never got to say goodbye, and Luke remains his unresolved. He gives Norma half of a painting he drew, inspired by the one she mentioned before. "Touched," Norma repeats. "A heart knows a heart." Then her tone shifts, and she warns Max that something is very wrong with this place, and that he needs to leave. Before she can continue, Norma notices Les watching from a distance. She abruptly ends the conversation and rushes back into her room. We then see Max in his room, trying to decode what Norma was trying to tell him. He asks Juno if she has seen Norma. Juno replies that Norma isn't feeling well and is resting in the infirmary. Hearing this, Max leaves. The next morning, while cleaning the garden, Max notices the same old man at the window. He bites his finger and tries to write something on the glass with his blood. Just then, Norma suddenly falls from above, landing on the sharp railing below, which kills her brutally. Sabian later tells the police that he found a note in Norma's room, mentioning her desire to join her deceased son. At Norma's memorial, Max talks to Louis, who expresses his sorrow. Max asks if he really believes Norma would take her own life. He tells him Norma had told him something was wrong with this place. Louis suddenly stares at Max. His body stiffens. Then he snaps back to normal, saying it's happening again. The scene cuts to a horrifying vision, filled with strange, disturbing imagery. Luke screams, "Help me!" and Max jolts awake. He notices something near his door, picks it up, and steps outside to check who left it. To his surprise, it's a radioactive light. As he turns, he sees a message glowing on the wall, only visible under the light. It reads, "Find the marked ones." Max hurries to Louis's room and shines the light. On the back of Louis's neck, he discovers a faint, cross-shaped mark. The next day, Max is seen on a video call with his parents. He tells them about Norma's death, and they express deep concern for him. His father asks if he's gaining anything from this experience. Max replies that he is. He feels these people need him, and he believes he can help them. Later, Max sneaks into Norma's sealed room and opens a cupboard, but Les suddenly appears. He warns Max he isn't allowed there and threatens to call the police. Max insists he only wanted to say goodbye and keep something of Norma's. Les replies, her belongings have already been sent to the basement for incineration, then gives Max a final warning to leave. Determined, Max heads to the basement to search through Norma's things. He finds his half-finished painting, a small trinket, and a diary. In it, Norma had written, Max had an encounter on the 4th floor. He must know the danger. Am I next? Is my Louis next? They come at night with their needles and their dogs, changing us too. Alarmed, Max rushes to Louis's room and tells him Norma was right. Something is terribly wrong in this place. Louis, distressed and vulnerable, says that Norma always protected him from his demons. But now she's gone, naked and bleeding. Louis admits, I have to punish myself. I ruined my career. He then hands Max a broken tooth before frantically pulling out more of his own teeth. Horrified, Max yells for help. Later, Louis is shown being treated by Sabian, while Max watches in shock. Max is then seen researching Sabian online. He learns that Sabian was once praised for his experimental brain procedures, a celebrated neuroscientist who later turned his focus to the aging brain, studying psychosis in patients over 75, but his reputation collapsed after a controversial eye therapy. Suddenly, Max's laptop floods with notifications. Have you seen the light? He clicks on one, and a strange software installs itself. A private chat room opens, revealing a woman with a filtered face. She tries to speak, but her voice is distorted. Suddenly, Max hears a man screaming from upstairs. The next day, Max has ordered Fuse security camera. Just then, the filtered woman suddenly appears on Max's laptop, warning him someone is coming, and there's a knock. It's Juno, who says Louis is fine and tells Max to meet her on the 1st floor in 5 minutes. Once she leaves, Max returns to his laptop. The woman reappears. He asks who she is, and if she left the light. She replies, I've been watching. I can't say more. They'll hurt me. Max presses her. Who? Sabian? The woman says this is much bigger than you think. You must help them before they're all turned into monsters, just like the others. Stop them. They killed Norma for knowing too much. They'll kill you too. Her face begins to glitch, and the connection cuts off. The news reports a violent storm approaching. Max enters a room and notices several residents touching the back of their necks. Suspicious, he thinks of the cross-shaped marks. Pretending to clean, he tries to set up a hidden camera, but Louis suddenly appears, startling him. Louis apologizes for his earlier behavior and admits there is something wrong with this place. Later, Max installs cameras throughout the facility and monitors them from his laptop. On one feed, he sees the old man from the 4th floor crawling toward the camera, tampering with it before leaving. Sometime later, Max dozes off but wakes abruptly to see Juno wheeling a woman down the hall. On the monitor, he spots Juno, Les, Sabian, and a person with a dog. Rushing to the location, he hears a woman crying, as if being assaulted. The man with the dog notices him, forcing Max to flee back to his room. Inside, he finds the filtered woman waiting. When Max asks who she is, she explains, Almont is a subsidiary of the U.S. Department of Health Services. The government funds this facility, research, testing, experimental drugs, even controversial gene trials. Every idea is first tested on animals, then on the elderly. Facilities like this exist all across the country. They're experimenting on hundreds, maybe thousands of people. Max asks who she is and why does she care so much. She reveals her father lived in a room down the hall, and now he is on 4th floor. She hurriedly tries to leave, but the old man from the floor appears and lunges at them. Max falls, hitting his head. Max is then taken for treatment. Sabian is seen plucking his teeth, and Max experiences another strange vision, needles being inserted into his eyes. Later, he regains consciousness and feels a sharp pain in his neck. Juno informs him that Sabian wants to perform a very thorough examination on him and goes to call him. As she leaves, Max grabs his belongings and escapes through the window. He is later shown with his foster parents, who take him back to the foster home. His father says he's making some calls, while his mother introduces him to two new girls, Tessa and Jackie. As they leave, Jackie whispers something to Tessa. Later, Max thanks his mother for taking care of him. She responds, "A heart knows a heart," which shocks him. She explains a friend once told her this long ago, though she can't remember who. She tells Max to rest, calling him her favorite. Suspicious, Max watches his parents leave in a car from the window. He immediately goes downstairs and asks the girls if they've ever seen Norma, showing them her photo. They deny it, so he starts searching the hall. Back in his room, he notices his and Luke's names scratched into his bed. Suddenly, the girls appear, asking if he found the secret place. He denies it. Jackie whispers something to Tessa, who points to a trinket and says they thought he had found it in the secret place. They lead him to a hidden room behind the wardrobe. It's a small worship area filled with multiple trinkets. Max finds a name tag of Dia, the Roman goddess of youth. Tessa asks if he's ever heard of Dea. He says no. She tells him there are some old photo albums as well. Max opens a 1997 album and finds photos of the residents partying. They all look the same as they do now, and even Max's parents there. In a 2000 album, he sees a group photo with a young woman captive in a wheelchair. In 2003, another young man appears captive and weak. In 2009, Max discovers a photo of Luke as a captive. Disturbed, Max takes the photo out of the album and rushes out. Max returns to the retirement home and makes his way to the 4th floor. Breaking into the floor, he recognizes Luke. The old man he had seen before is Luke. Tears stream down Luke's face. "I missed you," Max says. "You were trying to help me." He shows Luke his thicker-than-blood tattoo. Luke stares at it, memories flooding back, and begins to cry harder. Max then pulls out the photo and demands, "Explain this. Is this where you were working in college? Is this where you were when they said you killed yourself? Who are these other captives?" Weakly, Luke points toward the other elderly residents in the room. Max approaches an old woman and asks if she's the one in the photo. She says yes. Suddenly, Les appears from behind and jabs a syringe into Max's neck, and he collapses. Then we see Max dressed up and seated in a room full of residents, his hands bound. A man clicks a group photo of them. Just then, Louis raises a glass and announces he wants to make a toast. He thanks everyone for being such great actors. Confused, Max yells, "What's going on?" Louis calmly explains that they're celebrating everything Max experienced, the marks on their necks, the government conspiracies, the faceless figures, was all part of an elaborate story they created, a performance, a cruel game they play on every foster child who enters their home. Max protests, insisting he has no idea what Louis is talking about. That's when Sabian explains the truth. Max is here because they need to drain him of his essence. He thanks Dia, the goddess of youth, as the room erupts in praise of her name. The scene cuts. Sabian tells Max to relax. He says he will only feel a little pinch. He asks Max if he's heard of the Fountain of Youth. "It's real," Sabian says. "It lies within us." A small sac behind the right eye. Science dismisses it as just a gland. But Dia showed us the truth. It's her nectar, the source of vitality and youth. He reveals that they have been draining Max every night, feeding on his honey. It keeps them young forever. One by one, the residents reveal their true ages. Max's parents admit they are actually 109 years old. Les is 93, and Louis is 128. Max's mother confesses they've sent most of their foster children here to harvest Dia's nectar. Sabian adds, "Tonight, we'll take a great deal more from you." Max warns them, "Take it all at once, or I'll kill you all." But Sabian says, "That's not possible. When you wake, you'll feel like a 100-year-old man." They force Max, prying his eyes open with an eye speculum. A needle pierces his eyeball as the elderly residents begin chanting, praising Dia, some of them touching and caressing each other in disturbing intimacy. And Sabian carefully extracts the glowing nectar from Max's eye. The scene cuts. Max is now alone, slumped in a wheelchair, frail and aged. Lewis enters and tells him, "You must be confused. Norma wanted to save you. Sentimental reasons. That's why she had to die." He instructs Max to rest, reminding him they still need his nectar, and leaves. Later, Max, nearly lifeless, watches as Luke breaks a stick from his wheelchair wheel. One by one, Luke kisses each captive's forehead before extracting their nectar. Finally, he extracts his own nectar, then leans down and kisses Max, making him drink all the nectar. Max's pupils dilate, and outside, the storm erupts with violent force.
You're still watching? Good. Like, comment, and subscribe to Recapss Horror.
Juno arrives on the 4th floor and finds the elderly collapsed on the ground. Suddenly, Max, now young and brimming with power, attacks her savagely, killing her. Luke smiles, knowing what has begun. Max arms himself with a hammer and an axe and storms through the home, brutally slaughtering residents. He kills them one by one, beating and hacking them apart. Terrified, Lewis hides inside a wardrobe, praying desperately to Dia for protection. Max attacks Sadie with an axe, then brutally kills Les with a hammer. He rips the axe from Sadie's eye and strikes Les again, finishing him. Eventually, he finds Lewis and drags him out. But when Sabian shoots at Max, every bullet hits Lewis instead. Enraged, Max snaps Sabian's hand and smashes his face repeatedly until he is dead. He then corners the woman who had played the filtered face figure in the faceless chat and slams her head through a glass window, killing her. Meanwhile, Max's parents manage to flee the building, only to be struck down outside as storm debris slices them in half. Max returns to Lewis, forces open his dying eyes, and growls, "I'm taking it all back." Later, as the storm subsides, Max emerges from the building, young and powerful once more. Luke walks beside him, smiling. Behind them, the freed residents step into the daylight, finally free and unburdened. With this, the movie ends. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a scare. Until next time, stay spooky.